My friends, we are really honored and privileged to introduce my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Rodolfo Felix from Mexico City. Rodolfo is a healer, a therapist, and neurodivergent advocate. He's got a passion for empowering individuals through spiritual guidance and deep therapeutic insight, which I have had the benefit of watching for years. As a teacher of advanced studies at the Brennan School of Healing, we teach together, right? And he helps students explore the transformative power of energy healing and supports their journey of personal and professional growth in a multitude of ways, including dance and music. Speaking of music for healing, right? Together, we also offer teachings on healing from narcissistic injury to a global audience. And we really work to provide compassionate and inclusive guidance. But Rodolfo's work is so grounded in his connection to spirit. He has a very indigenous way. Has done remarkable work for years in his own programs in Mexico, offering that compassionate, inclusive approach to help others unlock their full potential and really embrace their true selves and lives. Welcome, Rodolfo. You are such a multi-talented person, and it's just a joy that just emanates from him. We're thrilled that you're joining us for the Energy Diagnostics Launch podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome.
Hi, Joy, and Dan. It's wonderful to meet you, Dan, for the first time.
You as well.
And, we've been together, Joy. You and I, we've been together for 8 years now. And working, just working things out in many different ways and being, I don't think I had ever met anyone that was as nerdy, geeky, and passionate about doing personal work as I was until I met you. So it's like, like we came together and it's like, we really do the work and we really expect the same from everybody else. So people who come to, to any kind of work that we do, they know that it's going to be highly professional and it's going to be, it's that we're spiritual geeks. I love that, And,
that's great.
There's your first quotable quote of the day.
Spiritual geeks.
Merch, Dan.
Right, spiritual geek. I'm gonna echo you on that. When I first met Joy at CNW when I was studying massage therapy and she was teaching wellness and emotional growth, she came in and she was like, "Look at what's possible if you do the work." And I'm like, sign me up. What can I do? And she'll tell you, I was always up for I want to be the demo. Where do I need to work? Point me in the direction and I will go. So it sounds very similar to what you just said about her as well. If you're willing to do it, it works.
Yeah, let's ride this ride. So fun. And Dan was great because here I am teaching body-centered psychotherapy within the scope of practice of massage therapists, and he jumped right on. He got it. He wrote this phenomenal paper, which I added to, and students still enjoy the wisdom from. So I just knew that he had something special and really got this work as well, coming from a different angle. So it's great to be with you both here. And, Rodolfo, can I just brag on you for a second? You have really done the research, speaking of, spiritual geeks, but research. We love research and evolution and, using ourselves to really move the work through to understand it at a very cellular level. But I recently watched you over the summer. You began offering, free content on the socials, TikTok. And I literally watched your audience grow to 150,000 people within a couple of weeks. And one of the things that I love about your videos, and you guys got to check them out. You'll have to let our folks know, what your socials are. So, but it starts off with the wolf call, which of course you got representing. Can you show everybody your T-shirt here? Your very rhinestone.
Yes. Look at that.
And if you're listening, he's got this beautiful black T-shirt on with these gorgeous silver rhinestones of a magical, mystical wolf. And all your videos start out with a wolf call. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this thing that's happening and this movement that you have that's growing of putting out content for people with neurodiversity?
Well, the thing is, it all started at BBSH because I used to hate my name, Rodolfo. And Rodolfo is Rudolph, in English. And I used to hate it because my grandfather was called Rodolfo, my father was called Rodolfo, and then I was called. And then everybody else got to have their own name. And for me, it was like, it sucks, so I was really pissed off. And then they used my name to, when somebody was angry, they would say Rodolfo. And they had another like pet name for me when they were happy with me. So I associated my name with that. And a fellow teacher from BBSH, when I was going through the program to learn how to become a teacher, he said, I've heard you say that you don't really like your name, but do you even know what it means? Have you ever looked at what the meaning of your name? And so I went in there, and it said literally, famous wolf. That's what Rodolfo means. And some others say wise wolf. So I'll take either. I don't care. But when I saw wolf, I was like, oh my God, I don't think I've ever even looked at wolves. Let me take a look. And so as I started deepening, like wolf, it's literally who I am, like they're good teachers. They're good at teamwork. They have high intuition. They won't stand for being domesticated. Like it's impossible to domesticate a wolf, but a wolf is highly loyal, so if you I feel like that with you, like I feel a lot of loyalty with you because you've always let my nature come out. And so as that started to happen, my neurodivergence, as soon as I assumed wolf, like I started to feel that energy, I stopped seeing my spiritual guides for a long time. They wouldn't come. And then suddenly I realized that they were there all along, but I was looking for humans, and they're not humans, they're wolves. So I have a pack of 101 wolf guides that do specific things while I'm working. And so then neurodivergence started to come in. And it was because of the work that I started to do with you, because when I came back and I went into advanced studies, we really started doing the deep dive. What was really interesting is that, and this is why I feel so, I feel so much allegiance and loyalty to the work that we do together, is because I saw that you were doing your work. You would work things out. And so as I started deepening, first came, narcissistic, all of the narcissism stuff. And once you taught me that, and I was able to see, I had 23 narcissists in my life until I met you. Like I hadn't really understood any of it, because now I know, because I'm neurodivergent. I thought that I was the one that was, the narcissist. I thought that I was the one that was wrong, because that's what everybody made me believe. And so as I started deepening into that, I started differentiating, and then like all of my neurodivergent qualities started to emerge. I stopped masking, and so I discovered this deep passion for teaching people about neurodivergence, because I think it's the new frontier. We, like, the past years, it's all been about LGBT, and like that's the kind of different that we worked on for the past 20 years, like humanity. But now it's moving to the next frontier, which has to do with not your sexual preference, but the way your mind works. And so I discovered that I have several neurodivergences, which make my life very complicated, but at the same time, they give me the abilities that I've needed in order to do the spiritual work. So right now, what I know is I'm autistic, grade one autistic. I have ADHD, and I have high capacities, which means pretty much it's like that kind of genius level intellect, but with a lot of complications, because it's very difficult for me to, for example, if I don't understand something, it's very hard for me to let go. And it's good when I'm doing the research, but if I become stuck, it's like my whole life gets stuck until I can find a way out. And you've seen me do this, right? Like sometimes in class, I'll go, Joy will say, we're really not being able to do this. And I'm like, I need to find an answer, And then Joy will go, Rodolfo, it's like, we have 5 minutes for the students to come in. And I'm like, no, I have to, I have to fix this. So neurodivergence is a lot of superpowers and a lot of limitations that come with those superpowers, right? And so the reason why I created this podcast, and actually in the podcast, I don't call myself Rodolfo anymore. My name is actually Lobo, which means wolf in Spanish. And that feels like my true name. So a lot of people in my life that are very close to me, they stopped calling me Rodolfo and they started to call me Lobo now. And the people in the podcast really like it because as Joy knows, I try to keep things very just very relaxed, and I'm very good at explaining things. That's one of my superpowers. So I can take something and break it down, and so people really appreciate the work that I'm doing, because there's a lot of neurodivergent people on TikTok already talking about neurodivergence, but I'm the only one that I've seen so far that actually does. I am teaching. I'm not just talking about my neurodivergence. I'm actually taking several subjects and doing a short, 4 or 5 minutes teaching on each subject.
It's so generous. You're taking the gifts of something that you have researched, worked avidly in your own life to regulate, and supporting the masses by sharing as a master educator, and therapist, what it is that helps you. And I really love watching the response to the warm response and how you're gaining more and more followers, because as a healer, you're presenting answers that sometimes modern psychology doesn't touch upon. And I love that when we have those moments, Lobo, that I can just take a moment and just reach out to touch you and just ground into the moment. And you can just course correct and let it all go and come into a grounded expression and back into the good of the whole, like that. That's that high level functioning that we see. Yeah. Dan, you had a couple of questions about neurodiversity, or even the terminology, right? That we're getting comfortable with now.
Yeah, I love it, and I'm a very much love the science behind things, and love to dig into the definitions. So for everybody out there, maybe you're familiar with healing, and that's why you found the podcast and that. But what is the tie-in with neurodiversity? What is the sort of the 30,000-foot view of what does that encompass? I know we've already spoken about what it's meant to you and what you've been able to, which sounds amazing. You've gone from somebody who was, not only didn't like their name, but thought they were the ones at fault, to somebody who is out there. You have a wolf on your shirt that is amazing. That I love it. For anybody that hasn't seen the video, you got to jump over and find the video of this. I can't stop looking at it. And now you are out leading the pack, literally. So that's amazing. So for you, somebody who doesn't understand neurodiversity, what's the 60-second commercial on that, and why is that important that we understand that?
So the thing about neurodiversity is like saying humanity, right? So it's all forms of thinking, all forms of how nervous systems work. That's neurodiversity. Neurodivergence is when the way that you think, behave, act, perceive the world is different than the norm, right? And so the norm is basically what most people do. That doesn't mean that it's the right way or the wrong way, but it's just what most people do. I've come to discover that I'm normally in very few ways, because many of the things that I've had to work in my life, I've noticed that I'm in that 10%, right? So for example, I'm also gay. So being LGBT is a 10% of humanity too. And so, as the people who are neurodivergent, they just have a different way of thinking and perceiving things. And so that way, it can be a disability for people who have the neurodivergence. Because, for example, because I'm autistic, I have several sensitive alteration issues. Joy knows that if I even look at aluminum, I start drooling. Have to cover my ears. So anytime that I see something that's covered in that aluminum, that material that like laptops are made of, to me it's torture. So like I have to cover anything. Most electronics come in aluminum now, and so I have to cover all of it in plastic or. So that's just one tiny example, right? If I go to a restaurant and the restaurant is like a cafeteria type, noisy, right? With that blender going off and then the waiters like talking and people, for me, it's impossible to even hear what people are saying because my brain doesn't really filter sounds. So I hear every sound, even the one at the back of the room, at the same volume as the sounds that are right in front of me. And so that's, that it can be a disability, but if you learn how to hack your neurodivergence, it can actually become a superpower. And I always like comparing neurodivergences with the X-Men, right? Each X-Man is a mutant, right? And the mutants, they all come with a superpower, and the superpower has a weakness, right? And so let's say, for example, one of the most famous ones is Professor Charles Xavier. So he's brilliant. He's like the most intelligent out of all of the mutants, right? And he can read minds, but he can actually read every mind in the universe, right? And so the problem with that is sometimes it's very difficult for him to not read minds and, like to keep people out of his head. And also because the energy is all in his head, he can't really walk. So he has to go on a wheelchair, right? So there's many examples. Cyclops can like project ruby rays out of his eyes, but he has to wear these glasses. Otherwise, if he doesn't have his eyes covered, the rays just like explode out and he could kill anyone. So it's like it benefits, but there's also a payment, right? So the problem with neurodivergence is, and we call it's like straight and LGBT, right? Our version of straights is the neurotypicals. And so neurotypical people are the people who well, you asked for a 60-second. I'm getting one. I'm getting a 60. It's very difficult for me to do something in 60 seconds, but let me give you the 60 seconds. So the problem with neurodivergence is people who are neurotypical, who work in the normal way, they have a pre-programmed, through their cerebellum, they have a pre-programmed structure of many things. So for example, a neurotypical person, they have to go to the supermarket, right? So there's a specific neuronal programming in their cerebellum that they instinctively know every step of the way, all the way to the supermarket, right? If you need to have a conversation with someone, let's say small talk, the cerebellum instinctively knows every single step of that conversation. So for neurotypicals, it's like they just have the conversation. They just go to the supermarket. It's easy. Life is much easier for a neurotypical person in that way, right? So people who are neurodivergent, they have a specific thing that is not programmed for them. They don't have the set of instructions. Depending on your neurodivergence is the set of instructions that's missing. So for people who are autistic, the instructions have to do with sensory processing, they have to do with communication, and they have to do with the way they deal with change. So a neurotypical, if they have a plan and the plan doesn't go like expected, they'll just go, oh, no problem, let's just do this other thing. For me, if there's a change in plan, it takes me 2 hours to process the meltdown that I'm gonna have because my brain can't really let go of that idea as fast, right? So for example, if I go to the supermarket, I really don't like to, I would much prefer to call and have them come over. But if I have to go to the supermarket, I literally have to think every step of the way, like what's gonna be. So if I'm sitting in the couch, I have to first say, okay, Rodolfo, let's get up from the couch. So I get up from the couch. Now what do I have to do? Okay, so let's get like the keys and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So once I'm ready with that, which I usually have a checklist that I go through so that I don't forget anything because I will, Then like get the keys, put the key in the door. So imagine trying to do every single step. It's exhausting. So many people who are neurodivergent, we are much more exhausted and life is much more difficult for us, but it doesn't look like it. And so people tend to go like, what are you talking about? It's not that hard. Just do it, right?
Right.
And it's kind of like what happens when you have depression and they tell you, oh, just fight the good fight, like
Right.
put a good face on. And you're like, what? Like, no, no, it's not, it doesn't feel like that. So you have to build all of these from the ground up. But because you have to do that, you kind of become an expert. So I'm very good at communication because I had to study it from the ground up, because before there was like, it was impossible for me to talk, that kind of stuff.
Rodolfo, as you're talking about this, I was just kind of trying to imagine living in that world. And, before somebody has a diagnosis, I can imagine that you've worked with people, including even experiencing it yourself, perhaps, of feeling misunderstood. Just talking about coming from a completely different world. Yeah. And I wonder if you hear from some of your loyal viewers and readers that finally feel in you that they've got someone who understands, some of the things that make them tick in a different way than the neurotypical world.
Yes, I have to say, like, to me, like there should be an extra like character structure, an extra wound, which is being misunderstood. For me, it's even worse than abandonment, rejection, betrayal, all the 5 wounds that we've worked on. For me, the biggest one is not being understood by the world. And it's very hard because the more neurodivergences you have, the harder it is for people to understand what happens for you, So because I have so many of them, I think I have like 6. I also have an inability to process numbers, which is called dyscalculia. And then there's sensory processing disorder. I also have that. And so as they accumulate, it gets harder and harder to understand. And so for me, it's like the worst projective identification that people fall on with me is not understanding me and making me feel misunderstood. And so I've really had to work on like saying, I don't need people to understand because I barely understand myself, like it's so difficult. And so because I'm upfront about that, other neurodivergents are going, oh my God, it's the same for me. I've had people write to me like letters about like, I was about to, end myself. And then I saw your podcast and then you gave this and it was like, oh my God, like I wanted to go because I thought that my life didn't make sense. It was never going to make sense. But once I saw what you were saying, it all makes sense now. I didn't even know that I had this. I went to the doctor, I got my autism diagnosis, and now I actually like living, And so that's, the power of just, giving away this information.
Yeah. So that begs the question, ultimately, how do you want to leave the world a better place than you found it with this information and being able to really be a helpful mentor and influence in other people's lives who feel misunderstood?
So I have 2 things that I've like that my guidance has taken me in that direction. The first one is, well, actually 3. First is what the work that we're doing that I learned how to do because of you, which is kicking narcissist ass as much as I can, because I love like ruining their plans and just messing up their, hurting people. I love that. Like that's kind of like dessert for me. It's very pleasurable to mess with their plans. That's how it feels for me. And it will always be like the cherry on top. And then I want to create a school for highly sensitive people and neurodivergents, because many people who are highly sensitive don't really have a neurodivergence other than being highly sensitive, but they have many of the same complications that neurodivergents struggle with. So I'm creating a program for people who are neurodivergent and highly sensitive to give them enough tools and personal work so that they can stand up to the world and say, this is who I am. And I don't care if you don't understand. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care if it feels uncomfortable for you. Here I am, this is basically what I've had to do. And so that's one thing. And then the other is because to me, being neurodivergent is not something I have. It's part of my essence. It's part of who I am. And I feel being LGBT, same for me. So, and even being wolf, I actually don't feel human on the inside. I feel more wolf now. And I realized by studying, many people who are neurodivergent have this, like what's happening with the wolf. And so I want to create a program because I've seen so many gay men, but young men or gay children, but I want to work on men because I think that's what I can help with. We all needed a mentor to show us the ropes of what it is to be a homosexual man, right, in the world. And our fathers, most of them can't really do that for us. Many of us don't actually have, at least not my generation, an uncle or someone who's trustworthy that can say, listen, you don't have to go the hetero way. You can do this. It's okay, right? And so I have stumbled upon and becoming a mentor to some younger gay men and who are also neurodivergent. And so my plan is to create like a school for gay mentors for, that have, with a strong ethics focus, with healing focus, but to help other men, we need to be sheep herded into like what it really is like, so that we know what friends to choose, who the people it's very difficult for us because we don't know anything. And our adolescence, it doesn't come in our teen years, it actually comes after we come out of the closet. So I had to go through my adolescence in my 20s, it sucked. And then no one was there to tell me it's okay for you to be feeling all of this. So for me, I think those are the three ways in which I want to leave something for the world. Because I've seen like in the LGBT community, lesbians, for example, they're high level. They do the work. They're good with emotions. Even like trans people, they've had to deal with so much shit that they're just ready for they can do their work. And if we go into non-binary and all of that, that's even deeper. But gay men, many of us, especially we're cis gay men, we have so much privilege that we're kind of like the gay white dude of the heteropatriarchal world. We've become very complacent and we're very disconnected from our empathy and emotions because we don't need to do the work. And, it's easy to just, have sex whenever you want to and and so we stay very superficial. And so what I want is to give gay men the possibility to deepen into their essence and to know, what it is about.
Amazing. What a great model of truth in multiple ways, Rodolfo. And I have no doubt that you will succeed and are already in the process of that and offering that to the world. So thank you very much. Just bringing to a close this incredible chapter with you in your life. I was listening to what you were talking about in terms of noise for you. And I was struck as you said that, like the background noise and how it takes your focus off. You're also a DJ. You're focusing on the jams, does that become the focus? And then you can let everything else go, and away. How does that work for you with your neurodiversity?
Well, because when I'm DJing, because it's like me and the music, and it is a meditation. So like, for example, when I DJ, I'm a shamanic type of DJ. So what I'm doing is actually healing people with my music. And so there's always a hidden message that I stitch together with the song lyrics and with how the energy starts to go in or then expand it. So I'm actually following a life pulse. And so it's not overwhelming for my senses at all because it feels right. But for example, if somebody comes in and goes like, oh, can you please play this song for me? Like that really kind of messes with the wave for me. So yeah.
I told him he needed a bodyguard for the people that were going to come up for a suggestion.
I have to say, like, I had to tell people repeatedly, no, please just enjoy. Really, I've got this, and you can listen to your songs whenever you want on your iPod, like, so the sensitive alteration issues usually come when I'm in a place where the energy, there's no control over it. The variables are too many. And so if I go to a concert that's really loud, but it's a special interest, maybe, for example, Madonna, right? I love Madonna. She was a special interest since I was a kid. And so if I go to a Madonna concert, it's less likely that I will have sensitive alterations. But if you take me to a Mexican banda concert, which is like accordion and the trumpets, and like it's this like very local regional sound that is awful. It's insane. And the lyrics are horrible. Everybody else has the fault. Women are objects, men are to be adored, and we're the big enchilada. It's so heteropatriarchal. So there's nothing about that experience which I like. And so I literally, like, my ears have to be covered if I'm gonna go to one of those concerts. Or the other day, like, we went to an Edith Piaf musical. Bardo dragged me to it, and it was so uninteresting for me because I find her music to be very boring, and it's the same song, like, with different lyrics. It's kind of like, it's kind of like, well, I don't know, I'm an American version of that, but there's many Mexican artists. There's a Guatemaltecan artist that does the same. His name is Ricardo Arjona. But so what was really nice is that Bardo really wanted to go. He wanted me to go with him. And then he said, if you want to be on your phone and put your earphones in while I'm watching the musical, that's fine. And so it was perfect for me. I got to, go over my social networking, all of that, and not have to deal with, and then I took my earphones off to hear, not La Vie en Rose, but which was the other, Je ne regrette rien, which is like her top song. So I did hear that because I really like that one, but then I put my earphones in and I'm like, I don't have to deal with this. And then when it was done, I was like, oh God, great. Now I can go back home. One thing that, was brilliant when you showed me narcissism, of course, my teacher who had taught me narcissism was a narcissist. So he conveniently left most of the important information out. So I was never able to understand what it was. And then as I started working with you and you gave me all this information, I realized that I had actually already kind of brought in a way. I knew that I needed how to learn how to recover soul fragments, because I just kept seeing that there were pieces of me all over and I didn't understand why. And so my guide showed me a way. I started working on that. And then you brought that narcissism piece in. We started working talking about the shamanic and the astral level and how much they hang out, even if they don't understand what they're doing, they're still doing it.
No, like a haunting. People are like haunted. There's a residue because they also may still be sourced, in their auric field, being drawn upon. And so we know that works. We've worked it ourselves, right? When people have chronic energy depletion, when people have not been able to get their zest back, as you said, their soulfulness complete and returned and moving forward in the direction of their dreams.
It was nice because I literally started learning about narcissism, and then I got to have a really wonderful live being sourced by a narcissist experience, which actually Joy helped me through. And so because you did that, it was so easy for me to go, oh my God, you're right. Like I gaslighting, we were able to, and then you said your whole energy field, because I was going through this card phase. So she said, he literally ripped all of the cords out and left a mess in your, because like I felt like I wanted to die. You know, I wanted to jump off the balcony, like my home's balcony. And then Joy said, of course you do, like you're in so much pain. And so she worked on me and that went away. And I was like, oh my God, this is why people are so messed up. You can be with a narcissist 2 weeks and still talk about them 8 years later because they have a piece of you and they mess with your energy. It's not just your mind that they're messing with. And so this is why I'm saying we love to screw with narcissist plans, because we actually get rid of the thing that they thought nobody was ever going to be able to get rid of. Joy helped me find a way to do that. Like there's a woman that I really admire. Her name is Dr. Ramani, and she, you know, she has nice information.
She's great.
Mental,
Yeah, she's
but
wonderful.
it's nice.
Mhm.
But one time I heard Dr. Ramani say she would never forgive a narcissist. She would never do that. And I thought, oh, that's a bummer. Like I was disappointed by her, because for me, the next step is forgiveness, because if you don't, then it's gonna happen over and over again. And it has to go to the point of my heart being open for the narcissist, even though like I'm setting boundaries, but I'm not closing my heart, because I know deep down that they're essentially good. They're just completely disconnected from their empathy. And they're like, and the way that their life went, you know, there was no way. And because that part of the brain dies, the part that has to do with empathy, there's no fixing them. But deep down, they're innocent. And so for me, it was important to go, this is a true person that deep down doesn't know what they're doing. And so I can't hate on them, you know? It was
And also, you point to a very important exercise. It helps people to move forward. And that's gathering the gifts and learn of what we learned about ourselves in these struggles, in these challenges, because it's not unusual for people to be financially failed, made homeless, you know, children to be impacted, custody issues, you name it, on the stressors of life, they're going to pull these strings. And so when we can find out what we're made of through, you know, letting go of that story and going into what did I learn about myself through this experience, which is so empowering. So thank you for sharing about that too, Rodolfo.
May I just add one last thing, because I think this is going to bring around. It is because of that narcissistic experience that Lobo came out. I had to let the wolf out in order to fix myself. And I realized that because I was scared of letting that energy out, of really assuming my true nature, that made me a target, because narcissists, they can target people who are truly authentic. But if you're masking in any way, you're a target. Like you have a target on your back for any narcissist to come. So as I started to become much more authentic, I realized that it's impossible to gaslight someone who is highly neurodivergent and who is not masked, because they'll just try to say something and I'll go, oh, you know what? I can't even listen to you. Like, or I'll just go, nope, because my body doesn't feel okay. Or so because of the narcissistic experience, the way to heal was to assume and to, you know, to really stand in my neurodivergent self. And so, and that was what needed to come out. And because that came out, now I see them from miles away. I'll go, oh, that's a narcissist. That's nice. You know, like I feel like I'm at a zoo looking at a lion, you know, from, you know, oh, that's cute. You know, bye, but I'm not gonna let them come close because I know they're predators, right? I don't hate them. I don't hate a lion, but I'm not gonna go lie next to a lion, you know? I'm not gonna like decide to go dancing in a nest of vipers, you know? Like, it's insane, right? Even if the vipers are very cute and have like big eyes. And so, so I think that it's been very healing. And so, that's why I appreciate all the work that we did together, because it's what brought everything around. And so I'm thankful that I had this experience. You know, it was horrible, and I wish I hope this is the last time that I have to go through it. It was incredibly, I think, the most painful thing that's ever happened to me. But because of that, it gave me the kick in the ass that I needed to stop bullying myself, gaslighting myself, manipulating myself, pushing myself, and, you know, really coming to who I am. And so I think that it was worth it in the end. But, you know, that doesn't mean I'm letting anyone else, you know, come near and again.
It sounds like an immense amount of healing that you've done, actually.
Yeah.
And, you know, you brought a point to something, and that is that healers with advanced techniques have the ability to repair people's torn, shredded, ripped auric fields that connect with the chronic immune system issues that happen with someone, and of course central nervous system hypersensitivity and being stuck in fight or flight, you know, all sorts of things we can support with our advanced skills that can help a person start to get their energy back, not be bleeding it out through these tears. And that's where healers working with someone, with their therapist as an adjunct, work perfectly together. Thank you, Rodolfo. And thanks for sharing about your platform, you know, with Neurodiversity. And thank you for being such a role model and leader in the world to support others. You know, really a life well lived. We thank you for helping us launch Energy Diagnostics Podcast. From Dan and I.
Thank you for the invitation. I loved being here with both of you. And I wish that Energy Diagnostics Podcast, like abundance, and, you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing what other people you're going to speak with and what's going to come through it, because like the energy that you both hold is really wonderful. Like I don't think that I didn't think that I was going to go so deep and that I was going to be so vulnerable about speaking about many of the things that I did today. And because you create that safe space, you both do, it actually allowed for that to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Rodolfo. We really appreciate that reflection.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you out there.